What started out as a passion project with no story, unnamed characters, and pure gameplay as its basis, Nacht Der Untoten was the first zombies map ever created. It wasn't supposed to be anything more than a fun little Easter egg for those who completed the campaign, but unbeknownst to Treyarch, it would explode into something way, way more than they ever thought it would be. Back in 2008, during the development of World at War, a number of Treyarch employees had been messing around with assets from the story mode, where some dead bodies were messed up enough to look like the undead, and some screams had a sort of zombie-ish sound to them. Taking those factors alongside the bunker scene in the multiplayer map Airfield and the campaign mission Hard Landing, an idea was born. A zombies survival mode was in development behind the scenes. When they had realized how much fun this mode was, they brought it up to the heads of Treyarch, who then brought it to Activision. Activision had then told Treyarch not to implement it because at the time they were competing with games such as Medal of Honor, Brothers in Arms, Hour of Victory, and other games of the sort. Though somehow, someway, Treyarch convinced Activision to let the mode be playable, with Activision's terms being no marketing whatsoever, and it had to be hidden to those buying the game, as they didn't want this side project ruining their reputation with the community and losing money because of it, as they were still going for a pseudo-realistic war shooter. So how did Treyarch implement this mode, you may wonder? Well, all you had to do was complete the World at War campaign and wait until the end of the credits sequence. You'll then be greeted by the beginning cutscene of Nacht and round 1 will begin. So, how's that for people who get up during the credits to leave, huh? And guess what? To the surprise of Activision, people absolutely adored this little Easter egg. So much so, in fact, that it has now become a main staple of the Call of Duty franchise, being released in the original Black Ops as its own fully fledged mode, with marketing, all the way up to the most recent Call of Duties such as Cold War, Vanguard, and the recently released Modern Warfare 3. Though what we have now is nothing like what we originally had. In fact, the difficulty is nowhere near what it used to be. Nowadays, you get to pick your loadout in the pregame lobby, upgrade your perks, weapon rarities, fight monsters, bosses, etc. Back in World at War, you were shitting your pants starting on round 1 with a 1911 in hand. The only weapons you had at your immediate disposal, with the help of some points that you'd get by instinctually shooting at the zombies in front of you, was a Kar 98K for 200 points and an M1A1 carbine for 600, the latter of the two being the only useful one, and the Kar 98K would go on to be a sort of challenge weapon for people who enjoyed testing themselves, seeing how far they could make it with the dreaded sniper, who drops off at maybe around round 2. After you begin to wander around, you'll eventually find the help door, which is just a wooden door with the word help written on it. After saving up the points to open the door, you'll find the Holy Grail, the mystery box. Personally, I think this is what began most people's addiction to the mode, as gambling runs deep for zombies players, man. Jokes aside, the mystery box is an essential part of the experience. It creates a way for almost all of the in-game weapons to be obtainable without making the walls cluttered with chalk drawings. Treyarch even added a weapon that was unobtainable in multiplayer and only obtainable in the campaign if you knew how. And you know what it is. I'm talking about the ray gun. This beautiful masterpiece of a weapon, and now that you had your essentials, it was time to explore the rest of the map and survive as long as you can. Now, credit to BlackOpsAmazing on YouTube for this, as this is where I heard it from. Here's Treyarch's explanation of how the mode came to be from an interview during the development of Black Ops 3.
Talk about it. We make a very social game. The multiplayer game is incredibly social, and our fans love it. But one part of the game that literally only exists because of our fans is our zombies.
Yeah.
it was a passion project inside the studio that totally should never have, you know, in any sort of like, I probably shouldn't even be here as a studio head because I let this thing happen at a time when the development was strained and the team was, you know, in a difficult place trying to release a historically authentic cinematic World War II game. And then you hear, have you heard they threw a zombie in there? It's a Nazi zombie, right? Everyone likes to kill Nazi zombies. So, you know, it's a fun new game co-op mode. And I'm like, whoa. Like, this hasn't been greenlit. Like, what's going on, you know? You got to try
Did you just sort of start moonlighting on zombies? And you were just like, you know what, I have this idea, and I'm just basically going to beg forgiveness? Is that where that came from?
I mean, the studio itself, I mean, it was, as Mark was saying, it kind of comes from the guys having a passion to create it and just kind of toying things around and playing with stuff. And then putting it in front of Mark and kind of showing it and saying, okay, the temperature was good. Okay, it's all good. Yeah. And then I think Mark then went on a process of introducing it to our publisher bit by bit.
We actually learned like a really valuable lesson about how to internally market features that were controversial through that process, because you know it was our first co-op experience as a team making a game that was cooperative, and we were just it was a thing that evolved over time as we were making the campaign game for co-op. We just learned and discovered that hey, the most fun experiences are when you're defending and you're defending together and you're playing these kind of defense missions.
Yeah,
and that just was like, we should just make a mode that is just about defending and having waves of attackers. And that was where it kind of started. And then the zombie portion came in because one of our missions was based on the Peleliu Island, where a bunch of airstrikes had come in. So we went to mocap. We motion captured all of these walking wounded soldiers. So they're all kind of like hobbling around and injured. And one of our lead scripters at the time on the campaign, he started to plug that in and say, you know, it's a little bit more fun when there's zombies in there, when they're soldiers.
Yeah.
And he started to, you know, add some layers to the mechanic, put some, you know, started to put the windows that you could repair and the wall buys.
Yeah.
And as we started to build this game out,
all different departments start climbing in. After they're crunched at night, like the sound team starts putting in, the animation team starts putting in. It was total grassroots.
It just started. People started playing it on the you know, on the team, and it just started kind of
in the middle of the night.
More people got.
They should have been going home to get sleep. They had me play it, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I'm gonna have to figure. Now I've got the problem of figuring out how to support the team to get it done.
Yeah.
So I just did the exact same thing. I literally, you know, wouldn't give it too much of a preamble. I just sit down with people and have them play with me. And isn't this fun? And just get them actually emotionally invested in what it was. But that only goes so far in business, because this is a, you know, as I talked to you about the origins of this thing, this is a authentic, cinematic experience inside of a historical setting. In this case, and World at War was a very like intense, brutal, serious, you know, World War II game.
Yeah.
And there's some people who are like, you're not sticking zombies in Call of Duty. I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, have you lost your mind, man?
Yeah.
The thing about it was, we made this deal with Activision, who owns Treyarch and is our publisher, that it wouldn't get marketed. We wouldn't market this. It's okay. Let us release it as an Easter egg. Like, after everyone's already experienced the, you know, artfully crafted, beautiful Call of Duty game that we've been working on for years. Let them experience that game. After the credits roll, we'll have this little surprise at the end. It's a lot of fun. I think people will enjoy it.
Yeah.
So they let us do that. And I think that very decision to actually not, and it's a very un-Call of Duty-like thing in this world to do, if you think about it, not promote it, not market it at all. The people who found it, who'd already got what they bargained for, they played their game, and they took it, they owned it, and that very same internet blew it up for us.
Yeah.
They took it, they got to own it.
The fans of your game getting so excited about that it blows up, it becomes its own thing. Their support, their passion leads to...
It becomes a main part of what a Treyarch Call of Duty game, what a Treyarch Black Ops game is.
Yeah.
It takes center stage as part of what Black Ops, when we shipped Black Ops, it had an epic campaign, it had an awesome multiplayer, and it had a zombies that came with it and just became part of what we make when we make our Call of Duty games.
Yeah, like it's a legitimate
its own
pillar on the disc, you know, and it kind of, you know, from those humble kind of beginnings, you know, in terms of what's fun, what's engaging, to the point now where it's getting allocations and it's getting resources in the studio, so we're developing it, which are just as long and just as weighty as other things. And you have to, you know, with DLC and digital content and stuff and so forth, consider it like a campaign, consider it like a full story.
As a 7-year story arc for its characters that we've been going on with this journey that will...
And I think that's something that you'll actually be interested in hearing, is that the story for zombies didn't always exist. There was not this comprehensive and forethought put into what this story was going to be from start to finish.
Yeah.
We had very little fiction around it. I mean, it was the very first iteration of Zombies was literally hobbled together from things that we found from other parts of the game.
They were mute characters, right? They didn't speak. They didn't have any personality in that sense, right?
But the community started to pick up on little hints of things in the game, and there were some intentional Easter eggs that were put around, but there were also some ones that we didn't actually place that the fans started to have these conspiracy theories around this. What does that mean? And they would fight with one another about what things meant.
There was one example which was there was a texture that was warped. Just warped at the corner, right? And they found it, they came in on it, and it was like finding a deity on your toast, It was like, oh wow, they're like, they're saying something here, that's like a demon or something, and that's because he's meddling in other powers, and it was just that we warped the texture. But we saw that kind of interest going, and it's like, we should actually do more of this stuff.
This interview does a really good job of showing how sometimes you really just have to take risks and hope for the best. Now, World at War isn't the final time we see Nacht Der Untoten in the Zombies franchise, as it pops up again in Black Ops 1 with the purchase of the Resurrection map pack. The differences from Black Ops 1 and World at War are the obtainable weapons in the mystery box being swapped out for Cold War era weapons, the atmosphere feels grittier due to a higher fidelity of the newer game engine, and you get to play as the Ultimus crew, with that being Richtofen, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takio that you've played through already in Black Ops 1 on the previous maps, as well as the Mule Kick perk being added to the spawn room, and the Thundergun and Symbol Monkeys being added into the box. Jumping over to its next appearance in Black Ops 2, where Nacht makes an appearance on transit as the Prototype, where it can be found in between the farm and the power station if you run along the cornfields. It has no real significance being here other than housing a jet gun part and a possible spawn location for a nav table part. In fact, Nacht is supposed to be in Germany, and now all of a sudden it's in America. I don't believe we ever get an explanation for that, but if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments down below. Moving on to Black Ops 3, Nacht Der Untoten makes two appearances, once as part of the Revelation DLC, which is the final map pack for the Black Ops 3 storyline, and once as a part of the Zombie Chronicles DLC, which brings back a whole load of maps from previous games. In Revelations, Nacht Der Untoten appears as the sort of hub area which connects all the teleporters into the separate sections of the map, such as Der Eisendrock, Mob of the Dead, and Verrückt. The way to access this is by turning on all the power areas, which is the corruptions that you have to override. And once you're in this area, you can use Nacht Der Untoten to trap the giant apothecon with the Tesla ray, which is the pressing the big red button, and you get your Pack-a-Punch machine back by going into the apothecon. Once you open the Pack-a-Punch, for the remainder of the game it will stay open, and as well as in Nacht, you can access Juggernog and the workbench for the Dragon Shield. Moving on to the Zombie Chronicles iteration of Nacht, the key differences are the futuristic Black Ops 3 era weapons are now available from the mystery box and as wall weapons. Carpenter and the Death Machine power-ups were added to the rotation. The Wonder Fizz was added upstairs, which allows the player to obtain more perks. 2 Gobblegum machines are located on the map. The Ultimus characters make a return as playable characters instead of the unidentified Marines like in the original map, but unlike the Black Ops 1 version, the characters are completely silent. And a radio featuring Dr.Montys was added, addressing the Ultimus crew, which tells the story of how they ended up in Nacht Der Untoten, and explains what happened to the unnamed Marines from the original incarnation of the map. Credit to NGTzombies for the fully transcribed video and audio.
Nacht Der Untoten. That translates as Night of the Dead. I learned that tonight. Been trying to scrub up on my German, you see. Anyway, it happened in an old concrete building on an airfield somewhere, I don't know where. I remember it being really small, simple by today's standards. I think there was a fog. Not a lot of it, certainly not coming into the building itself. You know what I just realized? You weren't even there. At least not at first. It was some other random, forgettable soldiers that had the misfortune to live through that horrible night, or Nacht, as it was actually known. Yeah, I speak German now.
The final iteration of Nacht Der Untoten would show up in Cold War as the centerpiece of the map Die Machine. I think it's really just a spectacle. I'm not entirely sure why they chose to use Nacht Der Untoten, other than for remembrance or nostalgia, but it's still really cool to see it show up again, and in the way that it shows up in Cold War, it looks really good and is one of my favorite editions of said map. And there you have it. There's the up to speed, full story history of Nacht Der Untoten. If there's anything I missed, please let me know, or tell me what videos to make next. I might make an entire series doing the history or sort of development of every single zombies map. Let me know if you want to see that, or if there's anything else you want to see, and I will, I'll try to make more videos. Please forgive a lot of the, mistakes and awkwardness of this first video. Other than that, subscribe, like, everything that I'm supposed to say. Have a great day, and peace.